Conor McGregor had some really interesting thoughts about having a stake in the company via MMA Junkie. So here's what he said, and then we'll react. I was promoter on the Mayweather fight, and we're in current negotiations. He told a crowd during a Q&A, there you go, prior to his film. I ain't stepping in that octagon again unless I'm part owner of the whole setup. I'm a promoter. And Dana said, listen, a lot of people bought in on the UFC, banks, celebrities, everything else. Listen, you want a piece? Hey. He's got a lot of money. Come in and buy a piece, man. It's never been done, but anything is possible. There's a lot of people who feel like they're worth this and they're worth that. We know what this kid's worth. And then Conor, lastly, they've got to entice me now because I came from a $1 billion fight. You got to entice me with some equity. I want ownership. I want to be true partners in this similar to the way I was in the Floyd fight. I was a promoter and I was a fighter, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what he's going to say at this point. So he wants equity. He wants ownership. Has he earned the right?
There's one important point, and I think you read it, I'm not sure. There's a lot of claims from McGregor himself saying before he wants equity, a fight on his turf in his hometown.
He was asked about it, and he sort of danced around from the quote that I saw.
It might be enough. Because he's in negotiations right now. So the fight's going to be with Tony Ferguson. If he's going to fight someone in the UFC.
Correct.
And I think, truthfully, what will happen, and I could be very wrong, I usually am, is that he'll get a fight on his turf for a lot of money. And then after that fight, when he's beaten Tony Ferguson, or if he loses, that could be landscape changing as well.
Yep.
I would think that Conor's going to be...
Well, that's why he wants to go all in order to take away the risk.
So if he were to win that fight, I think that what Dana White should say is beat Tony Ferguson on your turf in Ireland and I'll give you a stake. Because Conor is bigger than the UFC. He's the most important person to the UFC, and you can tell. Now, UFC 217 is going to do very well at Madison Square Garden. It's got an unbelievable card. There's a lot of fans that are going to come to see it. It's going to probably be the best shot at the biggest card of the year. You have to wonder, though, GSP's 1,000 years old. How much more is he going to give? Bisping, all these things. You need to settle.
Who do you have winning, by the way?
I have no idea. I'm taking Bisping because he's just...
Active.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's the only reason I default to Bisping.
So I would take him. I'm taking Garbrandt. I'm taking...
Remember also, allow me to interject,
Mickey
the fight...
Gall.
Yeah, well, that's bias.
Yeah.
That's Jersey bias.
Of course, I also know him. So I was going to...
Wait, you know him?
Yeah, we've had him on a couple of times.
Yeah, I know that. I thought from the Jersey days.
No. Actually, although one of my...
Has he gone to the Jersey Shore?
He's like from there.
And you're like from there?
Yeah.
Sweet. You guys play skee ball together and hold hands, collect tickets?
We play skee ball. We play skee ball together.
Are you good at skee ball?
No, I've never played skee ball. Actually, I know it's
never.
Like a big arcade thing at the Jersey Shore. I just never played skee ball.
Ever. Not once.
Not once.
Oh boy. All right, good to know.
Good game. You know a lot more about it than I do.
Yeah, it's a good game. I've never hit the 100 in the corners.
Oh.
I've only gotten like 50 or whatever. I've never hit the 100.
Like 0 to 40 real quick.
Real quick.
But
Whole squad on that real shit. Me and Mickey Gall.
In terms of the Conor thing, Conor's bigger than the UFC. People hate when I say this, but he's bigger than the UFC. He is. He's their biggest star ever.
So think about this. Let's put this in perspective. Let's say he doesn't get stake, all right? Doesn't get stake, doesn't get equity, and he decides to quit. What will happen with the Ultimate Fighting Championship? Will they have some good cards here and there? Sure.
Yes.
Will they have Conor producing cards? No. Until there is another Conor McGregor. That is how big he is.
And
now,
I said previously,
I said previously, and this was probably 2 years ago, I want to say, and this is how much not only Conor but the UFC have evolved in complete opposite directions. Was Ronda Rousey was at the height, right? She was at the peak. And I make this similarity all the time. I thought she was the biggest star in the UFC at the time because she created something that never was. There have been UFC fighters before. She created the women's division and laid the groundwork for other women to succeed her and the UFC to make a profit off of these women. It's like Tiger Woods going into Nike and creating an entire division of golf stuff that they did not have before Tiger Woods arrived. So it's brand new. Conor McGregor has passed Ronda Rousey clearly. But the star power is there that until they build up another star who is the perfect combination of having, let's just keep it real, having a English accent, right, who is dominant, who knocks out guys, who can sell a fight, who can talk shit, and is also billed up as an attractive person. It was like the perfect storm that came about when the UFC needed it because Ronda was out.
Yep.
John Jones fucked himself, and the platform was literally given. They're like, Conor, please save us, and they did, and it led to the sale of them turning a $2 million enterprise into a $4+ billion enterprise, and Conor has a lot to do with that. So should we hate on him for trying to be a business savvy person first?
He won.
Absolutely not.
He won.
He came from the ghettos of Ireland to now literally riding in Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and taking private jets. I don't hate on him for that. I hate on him for some of the things that he has said, much like LeVar Ball. It's not how they did it. I'm sorry. It's not how they viewed themselves. It's some of the things that they have respectively said to get their platform to a completely different level that nobody saw except for them. So I'm not surprised at all. Now here's the big kicker, real quick. Here's the big kicker, and this is for everybody in the comments as well. If the UFC says no, does it go to Bellator?
No. Fuck no. Bellator has 1/10 the money that the UFC does.
Oh, I agree. But if they give him a huge stake,
They can't.
how can't they?
Do you realize that like Bellator giving him a huge stake is still less? It's probably the same amount of money. Giving him a stake in Bellator isn't going to make him the money he wants.
I think if Bellator wants to go hard at the UFC and hit him where it hurts, they put all their money, get the investors, and poach Conor McGregor.
I think Conor would look at the Bellator and say, "Who the fuck is that guy?"
Not if the money talks.
No, but he's not going to be there.
You never know if it
Bellator-
could. You
of
never
course.
know if it could, Jason.
Of course, but the money, like Bellator is.
Immediate reaction, just hypothetically. Bellator signs Conor McGregor. What happens?
You mean no? You mean Bellator gives him a 50% stake in Bellator?
Yes, and they sign him to fight.
What happens?
Yeah, what happens to the MMA landscape? Don't guys want to fight Conor? Don't they want to fight the biggest cash cow?
I don't think.
I think they would get a
I don't
great
think
ROI
Conor's
if they were to get him.
I think you are overestimating.
The star power of Conor McGregor?
I think you're overestimating what Bellator can offer right now.
Oh, I agree.
That would
right.
be-
No,
that- here's my example.
You missed me. You missed me saying that they would go to their investors and they would pour this money into Conor because everyone wants to fight him and he's the biggest star, arguably, in MMA history.
My point being is this.
Is it going to happen? No, it's a hypothetical.
This would be like me saying to you, okay, Conor McGregor wants to have a share of the New York Yankees, right? And then
I think it's different because it's not MMA. It's baseball. It's a completely different sport, Jason. All right, hit me. Go ahead.
Because the analogy will stand. Bellator is the minor leagues compared to the UFC. It is. They are both promotions. They are both cards. But the absolute size and stature is the numbers that MLB gets compared to the numbers that AAA gets is very similar. There is a giant.
Again, I don't think it's a fair comparison to say the Yankees to a minor league team. I don't think that that's a fair comparison. There's only 2 leagues right now, respectively, you could say. Governing bodies. Is that the correct verbiage?
I'm going to tell you what Bellator is
correct
worth.
word usage. Yeah, dude, of course they're not worth as much as the UFC. They just got $4 billion. You're stating the obvious. But to make the comparison between 2 leagues in one sport compared to Major League Baseball that has so many teams, I don't think it's an exact fair comparison.
Would be better off starting as you said before the show, starting as entirely own MMA promotion.
Yes.
Than ever going to Bellator. Bellator can't survive. It won't survive, unfortunately. I like that there's some other promotion out there, but like
it was a hypothetical. If they wanted to really compete with the UFC, that is what they would do.
That's the only thing they could do, but they can't afford it. They can't afford to get Conor McGregor. I think there's nothing they could offer that I think would be enticing.
Right, and then I said the other part of that was they go to the investors of Bellator, ask for money, and just literally throw it at Conor McGregor. That was the other part. But look, am I saying it's going to happen? Fuck no, absolutely not.
I'd be shocked.
Absolutely not. I'm just saying if they wanted to compete with the UFC and maybe not push them, but get in front of them, sort of like what Adidas did to Jordan Brand, poach the best. Go poach the best. Make sure that you go ahead of them. Be competitive. Are they going to compete against the UFC without somebody like Conor McGregor? No, absolutely not.
It's like when Kobe was with Adidas and then Nike poached Kobe from Adidas after year 9. Kobe's 9th year in the league.
Was it 9?
It was year 9.
Fuck.
Because it used to be called the KB8s, but that was just because his number was 8. Comment below. Should Conor McGregor take 50% stake in Bellator?
Well,
Should he try to
it's
take-
not, we don't even know. It was just a
Should he
hypothetical.
take a 37% stake in the
I'm
UFC?
not saying it's going to happen.
Should he restart the World Extreme Cage Fighting? Should he go to Japan and start the notorious MMA circuit? I don't know.